everybody. And I'm so excited to see you this morning. Good morning. Good morning to those of you who are joining us live on Facebook Live. Hey, do me a favor, pull your phone out here in the room access, go to access on Facebook, and you can hit share on the message. We'd love for you to share this because who knows what influence you have and the difference it might make in someone else's life as they receive it. Thanks for being here and showing up in force on Time Change Sunday, everybody. You look rested, you look good, you look caffeinated. It is so much fun. How many of you like this time change? Anybody? How many don't? It's parents that don't like this one because your kids get up at the same time, but the clock says an hour earlier, so whatever. I'm so excited today. We're kicking off a new series called Cold Turkey, and I really believe this one can be a game changer for us because the whole heart of this is we believe that there's some things that all of us need to quit. Now, this is my favorite time of the year. It's hard to believe that it's November already. I mean, I love this time of the year. Football gets meaningful. The big holidays are still ahead of us. Halloween is over. Parents, hopefully you got your candy tax on from your children like I did. But this is the time of year that once we're past Halloween, I'm just curious, how many of you just jump straight to Christmas? Anybody just jump straight to Christmas? Several of you, okay. Those of you who do that, you murder Thanksgiving. What is wrong with you? Thanksgiving is the best holiday. I love Christmas, don't get me wrong. I'm not anti-Santa. I love me some Santa. I love gifts. But Thanksgiving is all the joy of Christmas without the pressure of presents and disappointing relatives. It's just, Thanksgiving is fantastic. Think about Thanksgiving. You wake up and you watch a parade on TV. Come on, nothing wrong with the parade. And then there is football, and the Cowboys play every Thanksgiving. And I love football, and I love the Cowboys. And then on top of all that, then there's just food, like all day food to look forward to. Like there is nothing wrong with Thanksgiving. And those of you who have already set up for Christmas, I want you to meet Jesus at the end of the service. Like there is something wrong. Don't skip Thanksgiving. Now, one of my favorite parts of Thanksgiving is that meal, like Thanksgiving turkey and mashed potatoes and gravy and dressing and stuffing. And it's just fantastic. But let me tell you something about me is I don't really like leftovers. I don't know how you roll, but there's just something about that turkey that the first time you eat it, it's magical. But after that, it's like, man, I'm ready for something else, right? I don't know how you roll, but that's how I roll. And as we lead up to the day when we eat turkey, I thought it would be awesome if we looked at some things that all of us need to quit cold turkey. Now, I don't know if you've ever tried to quit a habit or a cycle or an addiction, but if you've ever tried to break out of a cycle or a habit or an addiction, you just need to know that it's really hard sometimes to just stop. It really is. In fact, most psychologists would tell you you're better to ease off of something and to replace it with something else. But I believe that there's some habits and there's some characteristics and there are some things that all of us can make the decision to, with God's help, to just quit cold turkey once and for all. And today I want to talk to you about the first one of these things, which is having a heart that is riddled with anger. Now, to get us started, some years ago, about 15 years ago, my brother Mike and I used to travel all over the country and speak at camps and churches, and it was always so much fun. But around this time, 15 years ago, a church in upstate New York invited Mike and me to come up and speak at their church. Now, when you think of New York, chances are you probably think of New York City. And New York City is amazing and beautiful, and honestly, it's kind of weird, and it's terrible because the New York Giants are from there. But everything else about the city, it's fantastic. I love New York City, but if you've ever had the privilege of going north of the city, it just gets gorgeous and beautiful, and it's amazing in this time of the year as the leaves are changing colors. It's a fantastic place. And this church north of New York City invited Mike and me to come speak at their church. And so we go up there, we get there, and normally when you travel and speak as a guest at a church, they'll put you up in a hotel or something like this. But this church had built onto their church property something called a parsonage. Now, if you're not old enough to remember church back in the 80s and 90s, parsonages were a season when churches would build a house for the pastor on the grounds where the church is. Now, that's where the pastor would live, and I'm going to be honest with you, I'm glad we don't do that anymore. And I don't mind people knowing where I live, but I don't need everybody to know where I live. And I love you so much, but you don't need to be ringing my doorbell at 3 o'clock in the morning. And that's what people would do to pastors in parsonages back in the day. And so this church that we were going to speak at had a parsonage built onto the property. And the pastor said, we're refinishing it, and we got a bedroom set up for you and Mike in the back of the house. And there's 2 twin beds that'll be perfect for you. So we go in, we get set up. Now, in this season of my life, it was 15 years ago, I was engaged and about to get married to my fiance, my soon-to-be wife, Elizabeth. And so we were in this beautiful part of our relationship. We loved each other, and our relationship was very public. Everybody knew we loved each other. Everybody knew we were engaged. It was a wonderful season. But my brother Mike in that season was kind of in a new dating relationship. And you know, if you've ever been in a dating relationship, there's phases and there's seasons to it. At first you keep it a secret because like what happens if it doesn't work out, right? And then now you go Facebook public, Facebook official with it. But Mike was in that first of all, I don't think Facebook was even a thing yet. He was in that pre-MySpace official season of his life. And he hadn't gone public with it. And when I would talk to Liz on the phone, I didn't care if anyone heard. I didn't care if anyone was listening to me. But when Mike talked to his girl, he had to keep it really secret, you know? So he was in another room. I talked to Liz. I said goodnight. I hung up and I got in my bed. A few minutes later, Mike ends his phone call and he comes in and I'm in that half asleep, half awake, kind of falling asleep days, and I'm not quite asleep yet, and Mike comes walking into the room, and he gets into the bed, and I can hear him rustle in the bed, and then he lays down and pulls the sheets over him, and about 10 seconds later, I hear this noise. Oh, God, what? Stop it, ow, 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 and he jumps out of his bed, and he points at me right in my face, finger right in my face, and he goes, you did this to me, you jerk, what is wrong with you? I'm half asleep in this moment, I'm like, huh? What are you talking about? And he's like, there's a wasp in my bed. You did this to me. Now, you know when you're angry, you do irrational things. You say irrational stuff. I looked at Mike. Now, I'm half asleep, but I'm sane enough to know that I didn't put a wasp in his bed. I looked at him. I said, Mike, let's think about this for a moment. You think that while you were on the phone, I caught a wasp. And I put it in your bed. And then I covered it up and I was waiting. You think that's what happened? Yes, you did. You did this to me, you jerk. And he called me all kinds of names that people shouldn't call people, and you certainly can't say them at church. And he was angry. He was angry. I was like, remember the Karate Kid, Mr. Miyagi? I'm like, you think I Miyagi'd this? And I took him and I set him in your bed and covered. I was waiting for this moment. You think that's what happened? He's like, yes, you did. You did this to me, you jerk. Now, the funny thing is, obviously I didn't do that to him. I wish I could have. It would have been funny. I didn't do that to him. But he had this moment where that wasp, which wasps are jerks, and he had this moment where this wasp completely disrupted his rest. It was not restful in that moment because the wasp was in his bed. If you got home this afternoon and you decided to take a nap, and you get in your bed and there was a wasp in your bed, would you think to yourself, oh, this is no good, but I'll be fine. I'll get through this. It'll hurt a little bit, but whatever. Life will go on. The sun will come up tomorrow. It's going to be fantastic. I'll be fine, right? Would you do that? Of course you wouldn't. Imagine someone came over to your house and they brought their pet snake and they brought it in a terrarium and they're showing you the snake. And look, I hate snakes. I don't even watch snakes on TV. If there is a zoo that has a snake section, your boy walks around the snake section. I don't do snakes. And imagine someone brought their snake over to your house and they tripped and fell and the snake got up out of it. And the last you saw was it was slithering into your bedroom. Imagine this, okay? And you couldn't find the snake. Would you go to bed that night? No, literally, Liz would just burn our house down. She would think it's cheaper and easier emotionally to just buy new stuff than it is to ever try to find that godforsaken snake in our house, right? That's how we would roll. You would never rest if there was a snake loose in your bedroom. You would never rest if there was a wasp in your bed. And it's fascinating. We understand that with our physical bodies. And yet so many of us, we have something that has lodged itself into our souls. And we don't do the hard work of getting rid of it. And here's the weirdest thing about this. Some of us, we have anger so deeply lodged in our heart. And instead of trying to get it out so that we can live free, we even do stuff like defending it. You have no idea why that pain is there. If you had walked a mile in my shoes, you would understand why I'm carrying so much pain. You have no idea the hurt that he took on me. You have no idea the abuse that she had in my life. You have no idea. We said till death do us part and she walked out. You have no idea the pain of that. You have no idea of the pain of a dad not being there for you for your whole upbringing. You have no idea the pain that I've walked through, and we justify the pain that's in our hearts instead of doing the work of getting rid of it. Today I want to talk to you about how can we do that. In the book of Proverbs, Solomon, who was the wisest man to ever live, he said this. He said, above all else, which means the most important thing you can do, it is the single most important decision you can make, is guard your heart. Why? Because out of it, everything you do flows from it. Above all else, guard your heart. The ancient Near Eastern mind believed that the heart was the seat of all emotion, that everything that you were and everything that you would become flowed from your heart. And so Solomon says, be careful, stand watch over your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Now here's the reality. For so many of us, we've allowed something that was done to us in one season of our life to affect us and to rob us of joy, peace, and tranquility for the rest of our life. And I just want to say to you, it is possible for us to make the decision to no longer be captivated and in captivity because of anger. That once and for all, you can let go and you can get past it. And I want to show you what the Bible says about how you and I can make the decision to quit it. Check this out, cold turkey. In the book of Ephesians, Paul is writing, and Paul lives this extraordinary life. He writes about 2/3 of the New Testament, and if anyone would have a reason to be justifiably angry, it would be Paul. Paul is in prison knowing he could die any moment for his faith in Jesus, and he's writing a letter that became the book of Ephesians to a church in the city of Ephesus, which is on the coast of modern-day Turkey. And here's what he says to them about their anger. He says this. He says, be angry. Now, this is interesting. Maybe some of you are like, that's in the Bible? Like, it's so there's my life verse, everybody. I have permission to be angry, right? That's not what he means. He says, be angry, which means you're going to get angry. People are going to cut you off in traffic. Your kids are going to disappoint you. Life is going to go not the way you intended it to go. And you're going to have moments where you flash anger. You can't control it. That's a God-given emotion. You will flash angry. Be angry, he says, yet do not sin. So when you're going to get angry, it's going to happen. Jesus got angry. You got to learn how to deal with the anger, and there's a huge reason you have to learn to deal with it, because if you're not careful, that anger will lodge itself in your heart, and you'll carry it from season to season. Here's how he says it later. He says, do not let the sun go down on your anger. Now, this is a beautiful sentiment. I've done a lot of weddings, and this sentence gets read at a lot of weddings. I did a wedding one time, and after the wedding was the reception. And the reception, we had the food and the cake, and then they did the different dances where the dad danced with his daughter and the mother danced with her son. And it's just these beautiful moments and dances. But then they did this one thing that I thought was cute. They said, every couple out to the dance floor. And they said, if you're married on the dance floor, and they said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to see who's been married the longest by eliminating people who've been married the newest to the longest. And so that we danced for a few minutes. And they said, if you've been married less than one day, you're eliminated. And so the bride and groom were eliminated, and it was cute. And eventually we whittled our way down to a couple who had been married for 55 years. 55 years. And everybody cheered for them, and we celebrated them. And they said, okay, now, you've been married 55 years. Give this new bride and groom some advice. How did you make it 55 years? And the woman took the microphone from the DJ and she said, we really believe the principle that we do not let the sun go down on our anger, which means if we're angry, we don't go to sleep. We do not go to sleep angry at each other. And then the husband took the microphone from her and he said, and because of that, I haven't slept for 6 whole weeks. So funny. My man, what's wrong with you? You're like, now look, this is a beautiful principle. In fact, if you're married, it's good advice. Don't go to bed angry at each other, because you will wake up angry at each other and you'll carry yesterday's pain into tomorrow. But I believe that this principle is way bigger than that, okay? This principle to me is so much more profound. What Paul is saying is don't let the anger from one season of your life go unresolved, so that you carry it into another season of your life. Because here's the reason. What will happen is you'll get hurt when you're 7 years old. Your daddy will sit you down and say, I love you, but I'm leaving. And he'll miss all the important days in your life. He'll miss you graduating from middle school and then high school. He'll miss your game-winning goal. He'll miss you getting the MVP trophy. He won't be there for you your first day of college. He won't be there for you when you win homecoming king. He just won't be there for those days. And there will be a moment that if you don't resolve the anger and the hurt in your heart, what will happen is you'll be several seasons down the road and you'll blow up about something that's insignificant. It'll just light a fuse in you and you'll explode on everybody. And you'll try to justify it. You'll say, I don't know, I'm just born this way. I don't know, I'm just kind of a hothead, whatever. But the truth is that outburst is actually connected to something from several seasons ago. What Paul understood was, if you let the sun set on one season of your life before you resolve the anger in your heart, you'll carry it into the next season, And then what happens is you lose sight of where the anger came from originally, and you don't know why you're constantly living a life in the captivity and in the control of anger. So make the decision. Don't let the sun set on one season of your life and carry today's anger into the next season of your life. And then he says this, and he says, nor give the devil a foothold. Kind of a fascinating picture of anger. He says, here's what anger does is if you're not careful, the devil will use it as a way to get a foothold into your heart. Now, some years ago, my boys were playing. I have two amazing sons, Joey and Gavin, and they were doing that thing that they do where they're chasing each other and tagging each other and wrestling with each other. And at one point, I don't know exactly what happened. I just know that Joey had done something to Gavin and he took off running and he was trying to get away from Gavin and he got to his bedroom first and he tried to slam the door shut. But before he could get the door completely shut, my son Gavin stuck his foot in the door and stopped the door from closing. I had one of these fun moments as a dad as I'm watching this happen, and Gavin just yells, "Ha ha, eat that sucker!" It's like, yeah. I don't know if I was angry at him or proud of him. I didn't really know in that moment, probably more proud to be honest. But Gavin understood something. Gavin understood that if he got his foot in the door, no matter how much stronger Joey was than him, Gavin had the leverage and eventually he'd get in. What Satan understands about anger is if you can carry anger from one season to the next and anger has a stronghold in your life, what will happen is that is the crack that the devil will use to get in and slowly eat away at your soul. You see, what I believe is anger is a carcinogen that if it's not dealt with will eventually become a cancer of your soul. It'll eat you from the inside out. Now, all of us, if we were to pass the microphone around, I'm like, when was the last time you were angry? You might have been angry today. Like, anger happens. You're just going to get angry. That's a normal part of life. Friday night, we did something super fun at our church. We had something called Team Access Honor Night. Now, if you don't know, Team Access is any person in our church who serves other people. We had this awesome event at House 820 downtown. We had a few hundred of our best friends come together, and we honored them. And it was on Friday night, and Friday was the night after Halloween. And so since it was so close to Halloween, we said, if you want to wear a costume and we'll have fun. So my wife and I, we showed up as Zach and Kelly from Saved by the Bell, which was a lot of fun. And on the way to this, I'm dressed like this. And on the drive there, I'm in my lane, minding my own business, and a car starts coming over into my lane. It's a truck that's pulling a trailer with like lawn equipment on it. And he doesn't see me and he starts pulling over into my lane. Now, something about me is I don't use my horn on my car very much. I think my wife thinks that she plays, the piano and her car horn. She treats it like an instrument. I don't roll like that. And sorry, we'll talk about that later. Don't get angry. It's in the Bible. And yeah. But I don't really use my car horn all that much. And so this guy kept coming into my lane and I'm like, what's this man doing? So eventually I graciously laid on my car horn to let him know that he was all up in my space. And then I was angry, but I'm a pastor in town. There's an access sticker on the back of my car. So I can't flick this guy off or curse at him, unfortunately. And so I'm like, what's the next best thing? So I pull up next to him, intending to give him this really dirty look. This what is wrong with you kind of look. And I pull up next to him at a red light and I give him this kind of a look. And he looks at me and he points and he falls over laughing. And I realize I'm wearing this. He's laughing and pointing. He rolls his window down. I roll my window down thinking he's going to apologize to me. And he goes, "What are you, a hipster Donald Trump?" It's like Zach Morris, idiot. What's wrong with you? In that moment, I flashed anger until this guy was laughing at me. At that point, it didn't really matter anymore. But I flashed anger. All of us know what it's like to get angry in a moment. Your kids disappoint you. Your dog makes a mistake. Just things happen and we just get angry, don't we? We get angry in moments. And Paul says, you're going to do this. This is going to happen. You are going to get angry. But the goal of your anger, you need to understand, is to carry it the least amount of time possible. The goal of anger is not just to get angry, but to get past it, to move past it as quickly as you can, and to carry it as short of a time as you can, because it has devastating consequences on our soul. The problem with anger, if we're just honest, the problem with anger is we justify it and we can't see it. We justify our anger and we can't really see our anger. It's kind of like this. If I were to try to describe anger to you, I'd say it like this. Greed says, I owe me. I'm due something. I should treat myself, treat yourself. I should get what I need from me. Greed is about me. Jealousy is a little different. Jealousy says that God owes me. Jealousy is when I look at what my neighbors have, and instead of honoring and celebrating them, I think, what about me? Why did he get a raise? Why did he get an upgrade? Why did he get a better car? Why did he get a nicer house? Why did he get more money? Why did he get the promotion? Why? Them. God, what about me? Jealousy says God owes me. Guilt is unique because guilt says I owe you. Now this is interesting because all of these use transactional kinds of language. These all use the words that we would use when we talk about money. Guilt says I owe you. I've done something that puts me into a debt relationship with you, and therefore I owe you. But anger is maybe the most destructive of these four because anger says you owe me. What happens with anger is we keep a record of every wrong that's ever been done to us. In the same way that in an old school check register, you would keep record of all the deposits and all the debits in your account. What we tend to do with people is we think, oh, you hurt me. Oh, you wronged me. And until you pay me back, I'm going to hold this over you until you pay me back. Until there is retribution, I'm going to hold this over you like a debt that you owe me. You know the problem is? You end up holding and carrying stuff that you were never intended to hold and to carry. And it gets really heavy. It gets really taxing and really weighty on you. Many of us, our souls are exhausted. Our souls feel restless. Why? Because we have carried unresolved anger from season to season to season, and it's crazy. So what do we do about it? Like, how do we move past it, okay? Now, I wish that there was like 5 steps in the Bible. I wish there was like a plan that God gives us to move past it, but I want you to see what God says that you can do about your anger. Here's what he says. Ephesians 4, verse 31, a few verses after what we just read. He says, get rid of it. Get rid of it. Make the decision to get rid of all bitterness and rage and anger, brawling and slander, along with every form of malice. Malice is like bad thinking or wrong thinking about other people. He says, make a decision to get rid of it. And this phrase, get rid of, in the ancient language of Greek, is this interesting phrase. It literally means to like take out the trash. Every Sunday night, before I go to bed, I take my big trash can and my big recycle can down by the street. And on early Monday mornings, the garbage men and the recycle people come through and they take my trash and they take my recycles for me. Every night, I load up that trash can and I wheel it out to the curb and I literally set it down and I take a step back and I turn around and I walk back into my house. This is the picture Paul says that we should have when it comes to our anger. Literally take it out and leave it by the curb and leave it to be picked up. You were never intended to carry it. Take it out like you would take the trash out. Maybe a better way to explain it is this. You ever been outside with friends and you're walking outside and you step into a spider web? Have you ever had this happen? Let me say this to you. There is no beautiful, graceful way to get out of a spider web. There just isn't, right? Immediately your mind goes to the worst case scenario. What if there is a spider on me? I will die in this moment. I am too young for this. God, why are you judging me? Like all these thoughts flood through your mind, right? And when you walk into a spider web, what do? You don't like daintily just kind of pick it off of you, right? You don't do that. What do? You don't care what you look like. You don't care what it feels like. Why? Because there's a flipping spider web on you, right? It has no place on you. It was never intended to be on you. And you do whatever it takes. You don't care how you look in the moment. You just got to get it off of you. Why? Because you don't want that spider to get after you. In the same way, listen to Paul's language again. Get rid of. Doesn't matter what it looks like. Doesn't matter what it costs you. Make the decision that it is better to be free than it ever is to get paid back. Make the decision that it is better to walk in freedom from anger than it is to look like you've got it all together when you're secretly dissolving inside. Make the decision once and for all to get rid of it. He says, get rid of all bitterness, rage, and anger. You know what's interesting? In Greek, the emphasized word is always at the beginning of the sentence. This word all in Greek would actually be at the beginning of the sentence. What Paul is trying to say is all of it, all the stuff that has this way of damaging and messing up your soul, just get rid of it. All of it. All bitterness, all rage, all anger, all brawling and slander, all malice. Get rid of all of it, whatever it looks like. Then here's what he says. Here's what you should do in response. So be kind and compassionate to one another, right? Okay, maybe I can get my strength enough together and maybe I can pull it all together in a way where I can do this. Fine, I'll be kind. I'm going to have to fake it for a while, but I'm going to do this. And then Paul takes it a step farther and he says, forgiving each other. This word forgiving is a big word, but it really has a simple definition. Forgiving just means to cancel all debts. If someone hurt you, if someone wronged you, if they abused you, if their words devastated you, you get to make the decision to cancel the debt, to forgive them of what they've done, forgiving all debts, forgiving each other. And you're like, well, but look, like, maybe that's good for most people. But you weren't hurt like I was hurt. You weren't molested like I was. You weren't abused like I was. You weren't assaulted like I was. You weren't left. You weren't devastated like I was. You have no idea what I've been through. So you want me to just forgive. Get rid of it and forgive. That's the solution, right? That's it? Yeah? And Paul's like, okay, here's how you can do it. Just as in Christ, God forgave, God canceled your debt, God forgave you. Okay, let me say this to you. You can never forgive someone of more than God has forgiven you of. You can never forgive someone of more than what you have been forgiven of. Think about the way that God forgave you. While we were still sinners, before we ever deserved God's forgiveness, Christ died for us. While we were dead in our sins and our trespasses, Jesus stepped into humanity and laid his life down as a ransom or a sacrifice for the sins of the world. Like literally there is nothing you can do to ever forgive someone of any wrong that they've done to you that is more egregious than the sin that you have been forgiven of. In the same way, what God says to you is, okay, look, you have a choice. You can either spend the rest of your life carrying this, or you can make the decision to let go of this anger, forgive the person, even if they don't deserve it. Why? Because forgiveness isn't about them. It's about your heart being free once and for all. If you're taking notes, write this down. Getting rid of anger is more important than getting paid back. And even getting paid back, let's be honest about this, it's an illusion, right? Well, my dad walked out on me 25 years ago. If he came and threw himself at your feet and begged for your forgiveness and you forgave him, will you ever get those 25 years back? You won't. But you know what you can get back? You can get your future back. You can make the decision that getting rid of anger is way more important than ever getting paid back. So the question I want to wrestle with just for these last couple minutes is, so what do we do? But what do we do with that unmitigated frustration, that anger that just boils beneath the surface and it has attached itself like a leech to our souls? What do we do with it? Well, the first thing you do if you're a note taker is we have to identify who we're angry with. Now this is hard because what we do is we think, I'm angry. Why am I angry? Stuff that happened to me in the past. What stuff? Some hurt. And we just overgeneralize everything and we try to have like a blanket forgiveness policy. It doesn't work. You have to know who you're angry with in order to forgive. So identify who you're angry with. What was his name? What was her name? What was their position of authority in your life? What did they say? Specifically, what did they say to you? What and who are you angry with? Number 2 is this. You have to decide what was taken from you. Now, this is a big deal. This is a big deal because of what I just explained. Like, you need to understand that if you can identify who you're angry with and then describe practically and as specifically as possible, what do they owe you? What could they ever do to repay you back? Write it down. This matters so much because of the third reason is you have to make the decision to cancel or forgive the debt. The reason you have to decide what was taken from you is you can't forgive general ideas. You give specific things. You hurt me and you took away 5 years of my childhood. You robbed me of 11 years of having a father in my home. You robbed me of my first marriage. You robbed me of my innocence. You robbed me of my virginity. You robbed me. You fill in the blanks with whatever you feel robbed of, but identify and decide what was taken from you so that you can cancel it and so that you can forgive. Why does this matter? Because at the end of the day, forgiveness is what breaks the power of anger. Look, you weren't created necessarily to get even, but you were created to be free. So what would it look like if all of us made this decision once and for all to say, it is so much more important for my heart to be set free than it ever was to get even? I think that what will happen is you'll walk in a new kind of freedom. You won't carry from one season in your past into the next season anger that you have no idea where it even came from. But once and for all, you can walk in freedom. What if this first Sunday in November, you and I made the decision to quit carrying anger, cold turkey? I believe it changes things. I'm going to ask you to take a moment. Would you bow your head and close your eyes all across this room? And before I pray, I'm going to ask you to take just 15 seconds of introspection where you try to identify places in your life where you're carrying anger. Maybe you don't think you are, but then you see a person across the mall, you see them at school, you see them at work, And all of a sudden, it's like your heart is transported back to that moment and you realize there is unmitigated pain from your past there. Who are you angry with? And I'm gonna challenge you to make the decision today to forgive. If you're like, look, you have no idea what I've walked through and you have no idea, I can't just forgive today. I wanna give you a lot of grace and say, okay, that's fine, but listen to me. You know when they hurt you. You can make the decision and know today when you're going to forgive. If it's not today, write a day down on the calendar and say, if it takes me 3 weeks to process it, on this day, this is the day I forgive and this is the day I walk in freedom. Let's pray. Jesus, thank you that you heal us. Thank you that you're our God who steps into our moments of pain and you're with us, but you invite us to do something with that pain. God, for some of us, we've carried hurt, anger, frustration, pain for so many seasons of our life that we've lost track of where it even came from to begin with. God, we ask you, we invite you to step into that pain and to help us. Help us to forgive. God, we know that forgiving isn't about getting even or even making things right. Forgiveness is about our hearts being set free. So God, give us the courage to set them free so that our hearts can be cut loose. God, some of us have carried pain from season to season to season for so long that we've forgotten where the source of the anger even is. Give us the courage to do the hard excavation work of the soul, to go back and to find that pain, because our hope is that we can discover freedom. God, thank you for it. Thank you that you love us so much that you didn't want us to live and carry this, but you wanted us to live free. So we thank you for it, God, in Jesus' name.